Welcome to Malpractice Podcast.
It's your turn.
So, are you ready to get started?
Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. My name is Sydney.
And I'm Jess.
This is Malpractice Podcast.
And pause. Everyone. Last week, if you're a real fan, you know, last week we did not put out an episode because Sydney was defending her dissertation for her damn PhD. And Sydney did pass.
Thank you.
And is a doctor.
Thank you.
So we will now be referring to her as Dr. Queen of everything.
Dr.
Sydney Sproul Eldridge.
Queen of everything, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's your name now. So everyone is welcome.
And no one addressed me as anything else.
Don't talk to her.
Honestly, there were a few people who I know are avid listeners that after our last episode came out sent me a DM.
Yeah.
That was like, good luck. And
Sydney did the damn thing. I was present in the courtroom. I wish.
Jess drove all the way from Austin.
Here I am. And she did a great job. She was incredible.
Thank you.
It was just amazing. Sydney has contributed to science.
Thank you.
I have contributed to nothing.
You contributed to me, and that's how transitive property.
Sydney did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Science.
for...
I was very impressed. I'm always impressed with Sydney, though. So.
Jess was gassing me up the whole time.
There is that fact.
If you need a hype man, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Jess is the hype man of the century.
Me.
Thank you.
She did a great job. So everybody clap at Sydney.
I clapped at myself.
That's me clapping.
That's obnoxious.
You should.
What else did you want to talk about? Veterans Day?
All I care about is that you did a great job, and
thank you.
I forced Sydney to allow me to bring balloons. So there were balloons.
Oh my God. It was so nice. They were like coordinated with my outfit.
It was so cute.
Everyone was like, did you get balloons that matched your outfit? And I'm like, I did not. But my best friend did get me balloons that matched my outfit.
And I'll do it today.
I also got mini bundt cakes.
Oh, and the real star of the show was the mini bundt cakes.
They were a hit. If you ever need to impress someone, put someone in a good mood, highly suggest a mini bundt cake because people smashed those things.
So the bundt cakes were arguably for like after Sydney's defense. Because we set them out, me and Sydney's mom, super cute on the table.
Yeah, y'all did a really good job.
While Sydney was having a small crisis of character in the corner.
Like a baby panic attack.
We were like, we'll do this. And then Eric, Sydney's husband, gets a bundt cake, sits down with his bundt cake. I turn around, I'm like, you're not supposed to have that bundt cake right now. And he was like, a little snack. While Sydney
like walks up to the front of the room.
Is starting her defense.
Yeah.
Like, at the
it was
start.
hilarious.
I was like, oh my God, Eric. But at least on brand.
I like winked at him because I was like, of course. Of course he has a bundt cake in his hand walking up to the front of the room.
He loves a dessert.
He does.
Be clear.
The man loves a treat.
Yeah, I mean, same.
Respect, yeah. No two people in the universe love a treat as much as Eric and Jess.
Yeah. It's pretty.
I have a type of person that I enjoy the company of, and it's the type of person who loves a treat.
That's me, yeah, 100%. Veterans Day did occur. So happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service.
Good message.
All you out there.
Last Friday in our timeline? Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? Elections happened?
Election day did happen. And
I hope you voted.
I'm trying to be positive because I am. It did not go my way here.
I am proud of you for being positive. I had my defense the day after Election Day.
Yeah.
Which was a choice.
I actually liked it because I would have been in my own feelings the whole day if it hadn't been for your defense, so I was easily able to distract myself.
Right, because you had to be in my feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the way home, I screamed Hamilton at the top of my lungs.
Yeah.
In defiance of the results.
You made the right move.
Yeah, it was a good time. Me, myself, and I had a great concert.
Anytime you scream Hamilton, you're making the right move. Yeah. I think.
I agree. Yeah, same.
Do you want to do this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to start. This is part 2. Sorry about the delayed part 2, but also you're welcome because now we have Dr. Queen of everything. And that is, be prepared to always be Dr. Queen of everything.
Be prepared.
I will.
Me be prepared?
Put it on a plaque. Yeah, that's you. You be prepared.
I'm prepared.
Okay.
So this is part 2. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, you should stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Go listen to that episode because you need to know the background information and the dirty deets on old Charlie Cullen before you listen to today's episode. That's important.
Yeah.
Today we're going to cover his investigation, spoiler alert, arrest, and the trials of this medical serial killer. So,
yeah. I wanted to pause and say that there is a movie out about him, and there's, which we said in the first episode, part 1. That's what I meant. But there's also a documentary out now.
About how they caught him.
Yes.
I saw that as we were prepping for this. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Did you watch it?
I've watched some of it.
Okay.
But
so that's everyone's homework after today. We have to go watch that.
Watch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I heard it was really good and it was in my recommended list.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Same. I look like a really interesting person in my recommendations. It's like.
Yeah.
It's like crime, alligator hunting, like, I don't understand myself, but I do watch both of those things.
No, same.
Murder.
I do too.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was listening to this podcast the other day and they were talking about how they zoned in on someone as a suspect because the person had a bunch of searches on different murders.
Ooh.
And I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
Ooh, don't look at my search history because it's all medical serial killers.
Yeah. But we don't have the ability to be an MSK.
No, we're doing it also out of a sense of interest, telling people stories, victim stories, and also sometimes we talk about
Creepingtons.
The person who's doing the serial killing. Because it's fascinating and also, fuck them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cue Charlie.
Right. Speaking of which, Charles Cullen, according to the New York Times, is likely among the most prolific serial killers in American history. Although the true extent of his crimes remains unknown as of this current moment, because this is a really recent case.
Yeah.
Some people estimate that he may have killed up to 400 people over the course of a 16-year nursing career. I think he's admitted to 45, and 29 of them have been confirmed, if my numbers are correct on that.
That sounds right.
But the stats are up to potentially 400, which would be just insane. So we talked about it a little bit last time. I just want to emphasize that part of the reason his crimes evaded notice for so long, and I feel like you see this a lot with medical serial killers, is because he was extremely selective about the medications that he used to kill his patients. He was very selective about the types of patients he targeted, at least in the beginning. And in that way, he eluded suspicion for a really long time. His 2 go-to drugs were the heart medication digoxin, also known as digitalis, and then insulin, which are both clear liquids that he could inject into IV bags. And both of those drugs are also fatal if administered incorrectly. And in the case of being injected into an IV bag for someone who doesn't need those things, it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
According to an interview that Cullen himself did with 60 Minutes, he said,
"Why did you like Ditch?"
Ditch, was a very powerful cardiac medication.
What does it do to someone?
In small amounts, it slows the heart rate down. In larger amounts, it can cause what's called complete heart block. And then the heart is very irregular. And, it can cause death. It does cause death in large amounts.
So he said that in an episode.
Who would talk to this man?
It's like the O.J. Simpson book where that's titled, If I Did It. It's that.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's
like people who want to talk about what they did, right?
Right. I was watching something. What crime was I watching?
Mm-hmm.
It was a sentencing for someone, that legal YouTube page that I watch.
You love the legal YouTube page.
Yeah. So, and the judge ruled that he committed a bunch of murders. I can't remember I watched too much of that now that I discovered it. But essentially, she ruled that he also could never make money from his crime. So he couldn't write about it. He couldn't talk about it. He couldn't be on any like podcasts or anything.
I respect that, and I wish they would always do that.
Me too.
Because John Wayne Gacy, like, sold art from prison.
Yeah, no.
They should never be able to make money off of their name as a serial killer, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because it's disrespectful to victims' families. Yes.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Dr. Queen of everything said so, and so it is written.
We legislate this.
That would be so cool.
Right. So he's been doing this for a long time. Over the course of like 16 years, the entire issue kind of came to a head following the death of a patient who is a reverend named Florian Gall, who has been treated at the hospital where Cullen worked and had been showing signs of improvement. He suddenly died from a massive heart attack, and then his autopsy revealed a lethal dose of the drug digoxin in his body. So that's another clue. If a patient is on the road to recovery, if they're improving, and then they suddenly tank, they're probably going to start doing autopsies, right?
Mm-hmm. And should.
So they did that in this case.
Cullen's final, I don't know why I said his name weird. Cullen? Okay, whatever. Charlie's final victim died in October of 2003, and the hospital was like, okay, bring the cops in. And they contacted the New Jersey State Police.
Yeah.
They ended up firing him for lying about dates on his application, though, on October 31st, 2003, not for, murder.
Murder.
Which is weird. And, like, the other problem with why he got away with it for so long was the lack of action of the administration of those places where he was employed.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that in the last episode, but it is like kind of a shame to have that be like a part of the problem.
Agreed. Because the hospitals are essentially, they're trying to avoid liability on their parts.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of this entire
litigation.
Yes.
Yeah.
A huge part of this entire investigation is the hospitals of trying to avoid getting sued.
And we should sue them.
Actually, the patients' families ended up,
and should,
in a lot of cases, filing at least civil suits against them.
And they should.
Correct.
When the detectives informed Somerset that Charles Cullen was the target of their investigation, the hospital fired him, not for harming patients, for lying on his job application.
Did you get the sense at Somerset, for example, that any of your colleagues, any of the nurses, any of the doctors knew what was going on?
No, I mean, until, the day I was fired, I mean, nobody gave me any indication that anybody was suspicious. I mean, the weird thing about Somerset Hospital is that they were planning on firing me the night before. So they let me work one more shift, knowing that they were going to fire me the next day. So they let me work an additional shift with the suspicion that I had harmed patients, which is kind of a bizarre thing to do.
Did you harm anybody that night?
No.
An investigation into Cullen's employment history revealed that the past hospitals he had worked for also had suspicions about his involvement with prior deaths, but they had never confirmed anything.
Right.
While the police are investigating Charles, Amy, who is our hero, or my girl, what is it? My girl Friday, this girl Friday, that girl Friday. What is that
I was
saying?
like Jessica Chastain.
What? Oh, what is it? What is
your girl Friday? My girl?
Yeah.
Somebody's
She's
girl
awesome.
Friday. Yeah.
She's the girl Friday. So, and it was a coworker of Charlie's at the time.
And friend.
Yeah, and a friend, a really good friend. So she's cooperating, actually, and helping the cops dig into the details of his crimes once she realizes that he was doing this. So we touched on this last week, but she basically had to overcome, like, deception of her friend, realization that her friend is capable of something like this, facing the facts of what had happened, and then agreed to help the cops investigate and, like, try and bring him to justice. So really a great risk to herself, because he was close with even her kids.
Right. And I feel like I can't overstate how difficult I think that would be if you found out, like, your best friend. It's like if I found out you were murdering people, I'd be like, there's no way.
Well,
like, for a long time, you would doubt it, and you'd be like, I need you to show me some proof that this is really happening. And when the detectives start coming up with that, she's like, there's just no other way this could have happened. So yeah, I'll help you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wild. I think when she saw the medical proof, she herself was like, oh my God, like that's how it had to have happened.
Yeah. But she still like doubted that it was him. She's
100%.
like, yeah, somebody is messing up, but it can't be my friend.
Can be
Right.
him. Yeah. So she's cooperating and helping the cops dig into the details of his crimes. Around this time, detectives visited Somerset Medical Center to look at abnormal lab reports after several patients had died. So
yeah,
they get access to the reports. One detective on the case said she came across a strong-minded, intelligent individual, so I rolled the dice and revealed some of our findings to her. And then he decided to show Loughren, Amy's last name, a record of the names and drug dosage information that Cullen had withdrawn while working in the ICU. And Amy told People magazine it was very, very obvious that there was something not right. She then said she knew she had to stop Charlie from hurting more people.
Mm-hmm.
When Amy saw the documents listing the drugs that he was ordering, she knew something was wrong. There's so many withdrawals, she said, of lethal medications that you wouldn't order unless you wanted to kill someone.
Right.
And she told that to CBS.
And when you look at, they cover this a little bit in the movie, but when you look at the records of how he was withdrawing things, it would be like 5 vials of insulin at a time. And other nurses were like, you would just never need that. You would never need to make these types of withdrawals. And also the way he was doing it was this weird thing where he would withdraw it and cancel, withdraw and cancel. So it looked like he hadn't gotten the medication. So it's like he was covering his tracks while he was doing it.
Kind of.
Except that
to me, that would be so weird. I'm like, are you well?
Right.
Like, if you can't even figure out this machine, you can't stick someone with a syringe.
Right.
Like, whenever they said that, and in the documents you can read that he was like, nope, or like, put it in, then nope, put it in, then nope. I'd be like, either we need to replace this whole machine, or that guy's a weirdo.
Well, something is clearly not right.
Yeah, it's him.
Right. So after this, and after they connect Charles Cullen to, they're starting to loosely connect at this point that he is involved in these suspicious deaths, especially if patients who are in the process of recovering, or like in one case, it was a 22-year-old. These are not angel of death killings. These are not people who are on their last leg, which he will later go on to claim that they were. I don't think that was ever the case. I think he just wanted to kill people.
And Amy, whenever she first realized he was doing this, she was like, oh, maybe he was trying to like
put people out of their misery.
She tried to reason that same thing. Yeah,
right.
Put people out of their misery. But then when she looked at the evidence, she was like, okay, like exactly what you just said. It was like,
no,
these people are fine. Or like they just had a child, or, why would anyone do that?
Or like his first victim came in for a skin rash. So saying that person was...
Yeah, on their last leg, no.
You were putting them out of their misery. It's like, you're wrong. Okay. So they start surveilling Charlie Cullen. They continue for around 2 months until the investigation was complete. During this time, Amy actually agreed to wear a wire and have a conversation with Charlie over lunch. So again...
I could never.
No.
I would fail.
I would be shaking, and then whoever I was talking to would be like, sorry, what's wrong with you? Because you are so sweaty right now.
Yeah, you're freaking out.
The cops got Amy to try and get a confession out of him. So she said, I know you did it. Let's go to the police station. We'll call them together. And then he basically replies with, I can't. He leaves the bar. The meeting between the two gave police enough information to suffice as probable cause. So I don't know exactly what came out during the conversation, but apparently it was enough that they felt like a judge would give them probable cause to issue a search warrant or an arrest warrant. So about a month later, Charlie was arrested at a restaurant on December 12th, 2003. And at that time, he was charged with only 1 count of murder that they could definitively prove. Well, they felt that they could definitively prove that he did.
Was him.
And then 1 count of attempted murder. So the Reverend Florian J. Gall was the one that they felt they could definitively prove. The one that we talked about just a second ago, the patient was definitively improving.
And then suddenly not.
And then suddenly had a massive heart attack, and also had a massive heart attack with this lethal drug in his system.
Mm-hmm.
And then the attempted murder was someone named Jin Kyung Han. So those were right on top of each other, like within a month of each other. On December 14th, he finally admitted that he had committed the murder that the detectives were investigating. He shared with Detective Dan Baldwin and Tim Braun that he had murdered Florian Gall and that he had tried to murder Jin Han.
And I just have to pause because I never compliment
police work.
Police. Yeah. And if these detectives had not been so strong in the evidence and pushed and continued, even when they met like difficult people in administration, when they couldn't get all the documentation, when they couldn't put 2 and 2 together, they still kept pushing. And if it was not for them, nothing would have come of this at all.
You're right.
How helpful was the hospital in this investigation?
How helpful was the hospital? They were very helpful by answering court-issued subpoenas. That was the extent of their cooperation.
When the detectives asked to see computerized records from the automated drug dispensary and the critical care unit, they say the hospital told them that it wasn't possible because the drug dispensing machine only stored records for 30 days. They learned otherwise from the machine's manufacturer.
They lied to you.
Yes, they did.
They didn't want to give you records that turned out to be crucial to your investigation.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you think they tried to obstruct your investigation?
They didn't try to help it, that's for sure.
So shout out to them, because without them, he could have went on to murder hundreds of more people.
Just kept going, yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to them for also identifying Amy as someone that they could trust and get on their side.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as a cop, you would be skeptical, maybe, but, you know, if you listen to our episode with Bruce Sackman, in every case, he always says that the nurses were the most helpful people.
Yeah.
And that he couldn't do the police work that he did without their help.
Yeah.
So shout out to them for accepting help and seeking her out as an ally, because I can imagine that that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I felt this. I had that same Bruce moment, as I often do in these medical serial killer episodes, where I'm like,
same.
You know, Bruce would be proud.
Yeah, 100%.
Bruce said, good job.
Bruce said, snaps for you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When they asked him if he had anything else that he wanted to talk about, he eventually went on to tell the detectives that he had murdered as many as 40 people over his 16-year career.
Yikes.
What did you say to get him to confess?
I wasn't very honest with him, and there's a part of me I still feel guilty about that. I was manipulating him a bit. I told him the investigators were also looking at me, and how could he think that I wasn't somehow going to be implicated? I remember saying to him, so who was your first victim? And was it a long time ago? Was it recent? And he started to talk. He said it was a long time ago.
I believe it was with a medication to drop the blood pressure.
Cullen's formal confession with the detectives would last 7 hours.
Cardiac event.
And then in April of 2004, he pled guilty to the murder of 13 patients and attempting to kill others by lethal injection while he was at Somerset. In the movie The Good Nurse, that bit of acting by Eddie Redmayne.
I was impressed with the entire casting. Yeah.
I was so impressed. I thought he did such a good I thought they all did such a good job. But also that moment was so
Yeah.
just very raw and believable. So
he's a good actor.
Yeah. This is where it all starts coming out. He's like very clearly fallen apart.
Yeah,
he's just like, yeah, I did everything. I did all of this.
I did more than you think I did.
I did way more than you think I did, and way more than you can pin on me. So
Yeah.
As part of his plea agreement, he said he would cooperate with authorities if they did not put the death penalty on the table.
I would have built the table with the death penalty. I would have been like, I can't not put it on the table.
Feel like it would be really hard not to.
Yeah.
It is the table. The table that all of this is resting on is the death penalty. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in the death penalty.
Same.
If they can prove that he murdered 40 plus people, that would be one of those cases where you're like, if not this, then what?
I always really appreciate when like prosecutors will ask the victims' families what they want.
Agreed.
I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. We've seen a couple cases where they do that. And I think, help me, the last medical serial killer that we covered was...
Oh, from Dallas?
Yep. Kamir, Billy Kamir.
Yeah. Because I would call him all sorts of weird names. Yeah.
Correct. They asked, in that case, the family if they wanted to pursue the death penalty, and the family said no, and then they respected those wishes, and
that's what they should do.
You love to see it, yeah.
Yeah.
A month later, he went on to plead guilty to the murder of 3 more patients in New Jersey. He also pled guilty in an Allentown court to killing 6 patients there and trying to murder 3 others. In November of 2004, he went on to plead guilty in a Pennsylvania court to killing 6 patients, trying to kill 3 others. I just said that. So in all, he admitted to killing between 30 and 40 people, and I think that number has grown as time has gone on. But some investigators believe it's more likely in the 300 to 400 range, as we were saying earlier, that estimate that was put forward by the New York Times. Is basically they started looking at all of the suspicious deaths that tracked with his career, and they're like, oh, he could be responsible for a lot more of these.
Mm-hmm. It's wild. Like, the numbers are, like, 30 to 40 people is a lot. 300 to 400.
Yeah. And I really wish he would have talked more about why he did certain things, because it would just be interesting to know. Like, why would you kill someone who came in with a rash?
Yeah. But I don't...
Like, you got away with it, so clearly whatever you did worked for you, but...
Yeah.
I feel like I waffle between wanting to hear why they did things the way that they did it, and then throw them in a hole and never talk to them again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like you need both.
Right.
You do.
Because how do you stop people in the future? Like, maybe he knows how.
Exactly. He was sentenced on March 2nd, 2006, to 11 consecutive life sentences by Judge Armstrong in New Jersey. So he's admitting to more of these murders, partially because he, he said, if you don't put the death penalty on the table, then I'll cooperate. But also because at this point, who's going to suffer for 11 life sentences? Not you.
Right. Like, what is there to hide?
So he's like, whatever.
Right.
He's not eligible for parole until June 10th of 2388. I was like, what number is that?
Which is not a real number.
What years are happening?
Right.
On March 10th, 2006, Cullen was brought into the courtroom of Lehigh County Judge William H. Platt for a sentencing hearing. And I want to say this too, he had pleaded guilty. So it's not like this was like a long drawn out jury trial. It was just, it could be drawn out for sentencing.
Yes.
So you have victim impact statements. If he had anyone who would speak on his behalf, I don't know who, but they could speak, those kinds of things. So,
right.
Cullen was really upset,
mm-hmm.
probably because he doesn't know what year he'd ever be up for parole.
Mm-hmm.
And he's upset with the judge, and he kept repeating, "Your Honor, you need to step down." For 30 minutes,
mm-hmm.
he was interrupting the proceedings by saying this.
Screaming at the judge.
Yeah, yelling.
Right.
Disrupting everything. Nothing can happen.
Yeah.
So the judge actually had Cullen gagged with a cloth and duct tape so that he would stop yelling.
Which I did not know you could do.
You can. You probably shouldn't.
Okay.
Even after he was gagged, he continued to try and repeat the phrase. So he's muffled, trying to be annoying. In that hearing, the judge gave him an additional 6 life sentences
mm-hmm.
for being the most annoying person in the entire world.
And I support that.
Yes. So as part of his plea agreement, he had been working with law enforcement officials to identify additional victims. In addition to other sentences pronounced in the same day in another county, Cullen currently faces a total of 18 life sentences. So you's a going away forever.
That has to be close to the record. Like, what is the record?
I don't know, but I do love this. I love that they don't say you're going away for life. I love that they say these are the crimes you have committed and you are going away in representation of each of these people that we have proof that you have murdered.
Yes.
Like, I think it sounds crazy, or like 18, like what's the point? But then I think about it, I'm like, no, that's good. Like,
yeah,
each of those people deserves just as
individual
much
justice.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you.
So Cullen is now 62, unfortunately, and is serving his time in New Jersey's Trenton Maximum Security Prison.
Is 40 an arbitrary number?
40 is an estimate. I gave a number between 30 and 40. I think I've identified, most of them.
Look, you pled guilty to murder. So you don't use that word.
I think that I had a lot of trouble accepting that word for a long time. I accept that that's what it is.
Do you consider yourself a serial killer?
I guess it depends upon a person's definition. If it's more than one and it's a pattern, I guess, then yes.
I'm not sure where the ambiguity is.
Yeah. What are you confused about?
What are you confused about? Do you know the definition? And he's like, yes, I do. Okay, I guess you're right.
I guess so. I mean, if it's more than one, well, yes, it was. You said yourself.
So yes. Which I don't...
Yes.
I guess it's interesting to know, but also this is one of those cases where I'm like, stop talking to him. Don't ask him if he's a medical serial killer. Yes, you already know he is.
Yeah.
What are you getting out of that?
Right. I think like criminal justice professionals should be able to speak with people like this to gain the insight.
Okay, after he was sentenced and sent to prison, Charles did several interviews.
Against my wishes.
Against all of our wishes. When asked why he did these things, which I actually would like to know this from the perspective of someone who is a professional who knows how to like analyze this type of thing. Behavioral analyst, perhaps, a la Criminal Minds.
Your secret wishful job.
My secret wishful job. Would quit tomorrow. Well, I guess I don't have to quit anymore. I could just start there. FBI, call me. So when asked why he did these things, he said that he administered the overdoses in order to spare people from coding or going into cardiac arrest. We all know that is not accurate.
Tomato, tomato, tomato. He's a liar.
Right. Are you throwing tomatoes or what's the tomato?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure because I was like, what does the tomato have to do with this? Let me make sure I get it.
You throw it at him.
Sure.
But verbally. Right.
Verbal tomatoes. He also gave a 60 Minutes interview where he said,
how did you choose who you were going to give this medication to?
It's difficult for me to go back in time and think about what things were running through my mind at the time.
Was it personal?
No.
Did you get pleasure out of it? Satisfaction?
No, I mean, I thought that people weren't suffering anymore, so in a sense, I thought I was helping. I worked on the burn unit, so, I mean, there was a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And I didn't cope with that as well as I thought I would.
And that was the first place that you gave someone medication that caused them to die?
Right. And I understand that being around pain and suffering may be hard, but you're making that worse.
You are pain and suffering.
Right. And as a nurse, you also, like, made a promise to try and make that better.
To not be pain and suffering.
Right. Yeah. I think you missed the point, friend. In the same interview, when asked why he did what he did, Charles said, I thought that people aren't suffering anymore, so in a sense, I thought I was helping. However, as noted by CBS News, Charles Cullen's known victims ranged in age from 21 to 91, and some were recovering from routine surgeries, some were about to be discharged. Basically, not everyone he killed was suffering, so the angel of death vibe does not really make sense to me or to anyone else. I personally think he was looking for a way to justify it, which I don't really understand when you've acknowledged almost 40 murders. Who are you trying to save yourself in the opinion of?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was thinking about his kids.
Maybe. I mean...
He hasn't this whole time, so maybe he started.
I always feel like the families are additional victims of serial killers because now you have
100%.
Those kids probably have to change their name, or they have to grow up and everyone knows that their dad was the murderer.
Yeah. Yep, that's such a good point.
Hate it. When discussing the murders, he told 60 Minutes...
There were people that you caused to die who are not near death and not suffering that much.
You know, again, you know, I mean, my goal here isn't to justify, you know, what I did. There is no justification. I just think that the only thing I can say is that I felt overwhelmed at the time.
Can you give us anything? Can you give the families anything? Any explanation for how this happened and why this happened?
Like I said, I can't. I just can say that it was more or less, you know, felt like I needed to do something. And I did. And that's not an answer to anything.
So, another terrible excuse. Chillingly, he also revealed that if he had not been caught, he probably never would have stopped of his own accord.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once you hit, 40...
You've made that apparent, but also it's very scary to know that the work that these people did...
Yeah.
Literally saved lives because he would not have stopped.
Right. He also said most of his life was a fog, in quotes.
Yeah.
And then he had blacked out memories of most of the murders.
Then how did you know which ones you did?
Correct. He said he couldn't recall how many people he murdered or why he chose them. Sometimes he'd be like, I never committed murders there, at a specific hospital. And then they would show him some records. He'd be like, oh, wait, yeah, I did that.
Like he couldn't remember. Oh, my God.
Yeah. So we mentioned this before, but the reason he was able to move through the system undetected was because of the lack of requirements to report suspicious behavior and the lack of employers' responsibility.
Yeah.
New Jersey and Pennsylvania both required the reporting of suspicious deaths, but only in the worst, most obvious cases, and the penalties for not reporting were minor.
Yeah.
Many states did not give the investigators the authority to discover workers' previous employers or employment as well.
Right. So there was no... The laws that were in place just made it really, really hard for these investigators to do their job.
And really easy to skirt the system.
Yes. And then on top of that, the hospitals, the administrators within the hospitals were actively fighting the investigators being able to discover that he did it while they were at their hospital because they didn't want to be held responsible.
Right.
So the entire system was basically built to hide medical serial killers at this point.
Yeah.
Cullen even said that hospitals suspected him but never did anything about it.
Did you expect to get caught?
Well, I think you can say I was caught at St. Barnabas and I was caught at St. Luke's. There's no reason that I should have been a practicing nurse after that.
They offered you some kind of a deal?
They said if you resign, we'll give you neutral references. And I decided to go with that.
What is it about this system and about hospitals that no one went to the police? No one really wanted to find out what was going on. They gave you an opportunity to leave.
I think because it's a matter of worrying about lawsuits. If they pointed out that there was a problem, we're going to be found liable for millions of dollars. So I guess they just saw it as a lot easier to not put themselves in a position of getting sued.
After basically being caught twice, he was allowed to quit with neutral references. And if you're the type of person who is willing to let a serial killer go with neutral references...
You need to be brought up on charges.
I think you're at least partially responsible.
Oh, 100%.
For whatever he goes on to do next, you knew it was going to happen and you were just okay with it.
And you knew what happened as well.
As long as it didn't happen in under your domain, then it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
After convicted, those people's fears actually ended up coming true, and several hospitals were sued by the families of the victims. In February of 2008, the families of his victims at Somerset Medical Center, Hunterton Medical Center, and Warren Hospital all reached a confidential settlement to end their wrongful death lawsuits after 4 years of battling legally with the hospitals. As a result of that settlement, none of the hospitals would have to admit wrongdoing in the case, and that wrongdoing included claims that the administrators did nothing to stop him from using stolen medications to kill patients, and also failing to notify authorities in cases where they suspected him of wrongdoing. So at 2 of these places, Barnabas and St. Luke's, he has already said, I was caught. The administrators knew. They just didn't do anything about that. And as part of this lawsuit settlement, those people were basically allowed to let it go.
Walk away.
Yeah.
So Amy actually visited Charles a number of times in jail, but he stopped answering her letters when he realized that she had been helping the prosecution.
Yeah.
And after, and this was after a book came out where she shared what she did in that book.
Yeah.
Up until that moment, she was acting as a confidential informant, but she agreed to be like in the book.
Right. And now she's been pretty public about it. And she has a book, and obviously there's a movie that she has a website where she promotes the book and talks about her experiences.
Yeah.
There's a movie,
She's vocal
obviously. Now. She's very vocal about it. And honestly, I think it's great to see her as the hero of the story basically finally get some recognition.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
She said, I think I wanted to be in denial that he was like a mercy killer. I wanted to make certain that whoever my friend Charlie was, that he was no longer there. She also said, I didn't get the answers I wanted, but I was able to see how charismatic he was and how easy it was to be drawn in. It was a process of being able to forgive myself for not seeing it.
Yeah.
And she also said, I knew that monster, Charlie, needed to be behind bars, but I was also putting my friend Charlie behind bars as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. She goes on to say, I really wanted to know if I had harmed someone accidentally, and I wanted answers and closure. I wanted to make certain that whoever my friend Charlie was, that he was just no longer there.
Right. Which I understand, and I think forgiving yourself would be hard.
Yeah.
Because once you work with him for a little while, I feel like it would be very easy to blame yourself for being like, why did I not see it?
You have to forgive yourself for that.
But also, people who are sociopaths, that's what they do. They trick you. They train themselves to be tricky and to fly under the radar because that's how they survive.
Yeah.
According to her website, Amy quit her job to try and figure out how she got so close to a murderer, which I feel like is very fair.
He was always early, always on time, crisp, and sat down and was very serious about getting to work.
Did you consider him to be a good nurse?
I did. Danny pushed this piece of paper across the table to me, and I was devastated. I knew he was murdering people.
How did you know that?
There were so many withdrawals of lethal medications. There's no reason except if you want to kill someone.
Were you angry?
I was sad for my patients. So many things were going through my mind. I was sad I didn't see it. I felt betrayed by my own intuition.
Amy currently lives in Florida with her family. She's been active in promoting the movie based on her story, The Good Nurse. Also, we talked about, I think we both love this movie. Her website is really interesting, and it's so fascinating to read her story and how she helped the detectives.
Prompted by Charlie Cullen, this case, all of the horrible things he did, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and 35 other states adopted new laws which encourage employers to give honest appraisals of workers' job performance and provide legal protections for reporting medical errors. I want to say, encouraging employers to give honest appraisals and telling them to are two different things, but we get it. Progress is slow.
Agreed.
The New Jersey laws, in particular, formed the model that other states would follow. First, the 2004 Patient Safety Act increased hospitals' responsibility for reporting serious preventable adverse events.
Mm-hmm.
The 2005 Enhancement Act, it's a supplement to the Patient Safety Act required hospitals to report certain details on their employees to the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs and mandated that complaints and disciplinary records relating to patient care be kept for at least 7 years. Should probably be longer.
Right, because one of the problems in this case is that some of the records that could have potentially implicated him were lost or destroyed or not turned over to investigators. And again, maybe that's true. Or if you're a cynic like me and you think that maybe those hospitals were doing a little CYA action.
Yeah, this prevents them.
Yeah.
So he was caught, put in prison by his coworker Hero. He's now serving forever life sentences as a result of his disgusting crimes. And there's been legislation passed to attempt and prevent something similar in the future. It can never bring back these victims. It can never bring their families true peace. But there's something that has been done. And we hope that they can take some sort of, I don't know, like...
solace
in that fact, and hopefully that they feel, those that have gotten something from the hospitals feel like they have a little bit of justice there too.
And I always feel like the cases where the families go on to change a law or they go on to they do something positive with their
and save other lives,
tremendous amount of grief that they have to deal with, and then potentially save other lives or make it harder for someone like this to work in plain sight.
Exactly.
I always feel like those cases are really inspiring because I can imagine that it would be so easy to feel really bitter and just stop doing things. So kudos to the families who helped push these laws forward in like 35 states, and also to those 15 holdouts. What are you doing?
Yeah, so weird. Weirdos.
Right. Get your shit together. Nobody wants this man operating in your state.
Nope.
That's what we know about that.
And that's what we know about that. So your homework is go and watch the documentary and the movie.
Do it.
Check out Amy's website, which we'll link. And if you have any recommendations for us to cover in next episodes, send us a DM on our Instagram, Malpractice Podcast, or an email, malpracticepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and don't forget to leave us a review wherever you like to listen. We love reading your reviews. We love reading your feedback. We good?
And don't forget.
Okay. And don't forget, malpractice makes perfect.
Bye.
Goodbye.